let's begin with the 8th chapter of Footprints Without Feet, The Hack Driver by Sinclair Lewis. A very beautiful story, very interesting. See, I always say interesting before every story, every chapter, because the stories are definitely interesting. Yeah. So let's know about our author first. Harry Sinclair Lewis was a famous American novelist, short story writer, and a playwright. That's a playwright. He would write plays. He was the first writer from the United States to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1930. He was awarded the Nobel Prize for his vigorous and graphic art of description. He created his characters with wit and humor. His first book, Hike and the Aeroplane, was published in 1912 under the pseudonym Tom Graham. So you see, he's all about the different stories, the short story writer, and in fact, he also received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1930. So let's see about this story. Since he's so good at it, I'm sure this story is equally interesting, and it definitely is. You're thoroughly going to enjoy and you're going to laugh your wit out. The Hack Driver is the story of a very cunning manipulator, Bill, Oliver Lutkins. Now that's given in brackets Y. You shall know it soon. It also shows that appearances are often deceptive. We've always said, don't judge the book by its cover. So appearances are often deceptive. They can be cheating. Once the narrator, a junior clerk in a law firm, had to go to New Mullion to serve a summon to Oliver Lutkins. Now, here the narrator is a junior clerk. Where? In the law firm. So let's get to the length of it. First, let's understand the plot of it. There he met Bill, who's Oliver Lutkins, the hack driver. Now, hack driver, so basically you have a horse-drawn carriage. He was the driver there. When the narrator asked about Oliver Lutkins, Bill took him to Fritz, who replied that Oliver had been there a little while ago. Bill, who was Oliver Lutkins himself, made a plan to befool the narrator. He was making a fool of him. He himself was the person and he took him all around. Great fun. In a very friendly but subtle way, Bill manipulated the tour. The whole tour he manipulated, taking the lawyer around the village. He literally took him everywhere. Then Bill took him to Oliver Lutkins' mother, who was a terrible, huge woman who threatened to beat them. At last, he returned disappointed. Disappointed as in, he did not meet the person. Do you think he did not meet the person? He was with the person, but he wasn't aware. He couldn't trace Oliver Lutkins. His boss rebuked him badly and asked him to go back to New Mullion with a person who knew Lutkins. He was very upset, his boss. He said, you go back and now this time you take someone who recognizes the person. When they reached there, he found Bill and Lutkins' mother together. The man recognized Lutkins. He told that Bill was no one but Lutkins himself. But the way they have put it up in words, it's great to fun. It's real fun to read. So let's go ahead and get the entire chapter, for which you will be able to write your extract answers, your question answers. You have the meanings. So let's move on. After graduating with honors, I became a junior assistant clerk in a magnificent law firm. Now here the narrator is saying he did his graduation with honors, and then he became a junior assistant clerk, in a very big law firm. I was sent not to prepare legal briefs, but to serve summons like a cheap private detective. He says, now I had done my law, so basically I should be preparing the legal briefs. Instead, I was asked to serve the warning or the citation to appear in court. I used to go and give these summons, to the people like a cheap private detective. I used to be asked to do these things. I had to go to dirty and shadowy corners of the city to seek out my victims. Who are the victims? The persons harmed or injured or killed as a result of crime, accident or other event or action. Here it was those people who had to come, who had to come to court maybe as a witness or something of that sort. So he calls them victims. Some of the larger and more self-confident ones even bait me up. Now, there were people who were way more, the self-confident ones and who were way larger, and they would land up beating me also. I hated this unpleasant work, and the side of the city life it revealed me. He says it was really unpleasant doing this work, and moreover, even the side of the city life that, where I used to go and see, I did not like it at all. I even considered fleeing to my hometown. I even thought I should run away to my hometown. I don't want to work like this. Where I could have been a real lawyer right away. There I could have become directly a lawyer instead of doing these, petty jobs. Without going through this unpleasant training period. I would not have to go through this training period if I would start this in my village itself, in my hometown. I would directly become a lawyer. So I rejoiced one day when they sent me out 40 miles in the country to a town called New Mullion to serve summons on a man called Oliver Lutkins. Now, do you see why he wanted to search this man? So yes, this place where Oliver Lutkins used to stay was 40 miles from where the narrator was staying. And Oliver Lutkins used to stay in New Mullion. So the narrator had to go there, which was 40 miles away. We needed this man as a witness in a law case, and he had ignored all our letters. Now, he was a witness to something. So he was supposed to come to the court for some, to solve the case. But the problem was he was not taking any of the letters. He was ignoring all of them. They sent so many letters for him to come, but he never turned up. So now he had to go there and give him the summon, serve the summon. When I got to New Mullion, my eager expectations of a sweet and simple country village were severely disappointed. Now he thought, I'm going so far and I'm sure it's a very sweet, it's a very nice place where I'm going. Very simple, it must be really clean and nice. But to his expectations, nothing of that sort was there. He was extremely disappointed because it was not what he had imagined. The streets were rivers of mud. The streets were so dirty, with rows of wooden shops, either painted a sour brown or bare of any paint at all. Now the roads were extremely dirty. There were wooden shops all there. Some of them were painted sour brown, that's, expressing resentment, disappointment or anger, the way they had been painted, or some were not even painted at all. So that ambience, that infrastructure, you can say, was really bad. The only agreeable sight as in the pleasant sight about the place was the delivery man at the station. Now, that was the only thing he found suitable and he found pleasant. Otherwise, nothing was okay. He was about 40, red-faced, cheerful, and thick about the middle. He was a little fat from the middle. He was cheerful, red-faced, and he was maybe the age of 40. His working clothes were dirty and well-worn, and he had a friendly manner. Now, his working clothes, the way he was standing there, he was dressed in something where they were dirty, but they were well worn, and he had a friendly manner. You felt at once that he liked people. So, some people are so approachable. Immediately you come to know, that they really like people. So, since he was new and this guy was very welcoming, so he was happy. I told him to find a man named Oliver Lutkins. So, I told him, I said, look, I am here, okay, and I need to meet this man, Oliver Lutkins. Lutkins. I saw him around here about an hour ago. Immediately he made up the whole thing. He says, oh, I just saw him an hour ago. Hard fellow to catch though. He's saying that fellow is not easy to catch. Always up to something or the other. He's always up to something or the other. Very difficult to catch. He's probably trying to start up a poker game in the back of Fritz's shop. Now, poker game is some game, they play with the cards. So he says he's going to start up that somewhere in the back of Fritz's shop. Now, Fritz also was another person there. I'll tell you, boy, is there any hurry about locating Lutkins? He says, so is it very urgent that you need to meet him? He's asking him. Yes, I want to catch the afternoon train back to the city. I was very important and secret about it. So he says, now he did not tell him exactly why. So he just told him, yes, it's very urgent for me to see him because I have to catch the afternoon train back to the city. So he did not tell him exactly why he wants to find him and stuff. So he was very quiet and secret about it. I'll tell you what, I've got a hack. A hack is what? A horse-drawn vehicle. So I'll get it out and we can drive around together and find Lutkins. He says, don't worry. You get onto the hack, come with me and we'll go around finding him. I know most of the places he hangs out. So the driver says, Bill, he calls himself Bill here. He says, I know where generally Lutkins sits. So we can go around those places. He was so open and friendly that I glowed with the warmth of his affection. He was very friendly, he was very welcoming. So I was really happy to meet him actually. Was really, glowed with the warmth of his affection. I knew, of course, that he wanted the business, but his kindness was real. Of course, he would not do that for free for me. He definitely was looking for money. But then his kindness was real. That was coming truly. I was glad the fair money would go to this good fellow. He says, I'm happy. I wouldn't mind paying him. But as long as he's a good fellow, so yes, not an issue. I managed to bargain down to $2 an hour. We agreed upon $2 an hour. So how much ever time it would take them. If it's 3 hours, he would pay him $6. And then he brought from his house nearby a sort of large black box on wheels. So something like this. It was a large black box on wheels. And this is what he brought from his house. He remarked, well, young man, here's the carriage. And his wide smile made me into an old friend. So here he came with the carriage. He said, okay, here is the carriage. And his wide smile, his welcoming smile, his loving, adorable smile actually made me into an old friend. It was like we knew each other since long. These villagers are so ready to help a stranger. Now they hardly knew each other, right? The narrator and Lutkins of Bill. They hardly knew each other, but then he was all ready to help him. He had already made it his own task to find Oliver Lutkins for me. It was like his duty, it became his duty, a part of, Bill's duty to find Lutkins. He said, I don't want to interfere, young fellow, but my guess is that you want to collect some money from Lutkins. Now, Bill is trying to know the reason why the narrator wants him. So he says, actually, you know what, it's not really my business, but by any chance, do you have to collect some money from him? He never pays anybody a cent. He says, that fellow is so stingy, he will just not pay you the money. He still owes me 50 cents on a poker game I was fool enough to play with him. He says till day he owes me. He's supposed to pay me 50 cents, but yet he's not paid it to me. And I was really foolish to play with that fellow. So like I told you, poker is a card game in which bluff is used as players bet on the value of their cards. So it is a type of a card game which people generally play. So that's how it was. He's not really bad, but it's hard to make him part with his money. He is a good person. As such, he's not bad. But when it comes to money, it's very difficult to get the money out of him. If you try to collect from him in those fancy clothes, he'll be suspicious and get away from you. He says, now the way you have come dressed, so the moment he sees you, he will become suspicious and definitely he will run away from you. He will definitely not pay you the money. If you want, I'll go into Fritz and ask for him and you can keep out of sight behind me. Now he's so smart. He tells him, look, you don't come with me. I'll go. Now you remember he was saying he's behind Fritz's shop. So he says, I will enter Fritz. I'll go and find out if he's there and I'll talk to him. You stay here only. You don't come in, right? Otherwise he will run away from you. I loved him for this. The narrator's like, wow, I just have to sit here and he'll go and find it for me. So he's like greatly happy. By myself, I might have never found Lutkins. He said, if I was alone in this place, if I had not come across Bill, I would have never been able to find this fellow. With the hack driver's knowing help, with his help, I was sure of getting my man. Now, because this man was there supporting me, right, I was sure that I will find that person. I took him into my confidence and told him that I wanted to serve the summons on Lutkins. Now, they became so close, so pally, that the narrator felt that, you know what, I can share it with him. Why am I looking for this person? So he tells him, and he makes sure, he tells him that, look, you're not going to share it with anybody, but I have come to serve a summon, you know, to Lutkins. So that's the reason I need to look for him. That the man had refused to be a witness when his information could have quickly settled our case. He says actually his presence in the court will help us solve a case. But the problem is he is not been coming and he is a witness. So if he comes, the case will be quickly solved. The driver listened earnestly. Earnestly as in very seriously. At the end, he hit me on the shoulder and laughed. Well, we'll give Brother Lutkins a little surprise. He says, don't worry, we'll surprise him. Now just see how he's cooking up the whole thing. Let's start, driver. Narrator says, come on, let's go. Most folks around here call me Bill or Magnuson. My business is called William Magnuson Fancy Carting and Hacking. So he says people know me by these names, either Bill or Magnuson, and my business is called William Magnuson Fancy Carting and Hacking. All right, Bill, shall we proceed to Fritz? He says, oh, that's good to know. Let's move ahead to Fritz. Yes, Lutkins is just as likely to be there as anywhere. He says, mostly we shall find him there. Plays a lot of poker. He plays that game a lot. He's good at deceiving people. He's very good at cheating people. Bill seemed to admire Lutkins' talent for dishonesty. Now, you know, he's literally admiring Lutkins' dishonesty. The way he was saying, the way he cheats. I felt that if he had been a policeman, he would have caught Lutkins respectfully and jailed him with regret. Now, for the narrator, Bill is such a good person that the way Bill is talking about Lutkins so respectfully, so the narrator thinks, you know what, if Bill would have been a policeman, he would have actually caught him respectfully. With great respect, he would have taken Lutkins and then he would have jailed him. But how? With regret. He definitely wouldn't want to jail him. Bill led me into Fritz. He took me till there. Have you seen Oliver Lutkins around today? Friend of his looking for him, said Bill cheerily. Now, here when Bill went there to Fritz, he is asking that person there, so have you seen Oliver Lutkins around today? A friend of his is looking for him. A friend of his wants to see him. Fritz looked at me, hiding behind Bill. Now, I, the narrator, was standing behind Bill. And so he was a little shocked because Fritz knew that this guy is Oliver Lutkins. So he looked at me, hiding behind Bill. He hesitated and then admitted, yes, he was in here a little while ago. Guess he's gone over to Gustav's to get a shave. He says, yes, he definitely was here. But he just left a little while ago and now he must be at the Gustav's where he's gone for a shave. Well, if he comes in, tell him I'm looking for him. He says, okay, so just in case he comes back, please tell him we are looking for him. We drove to Gustav's barber shop. Again, Bill went in first. Now remember, Bill had told him, you don't come with me in those fancy clothes. If he sees you, he will run away. So you stay there, right? You stay there in the hack itself. I will first go and find out. So again, Bill went in first and I lingered at the door. I was just moving around at the door. He asked not only the Swede, but 2 customers if they had seen Lutkins. So he did not ask the owner, not just himself, but he even asked the other 2 people who were over there. The Swede had not. He says, no, I have not seen him. He said angrily, I haven't seen him and don't care to. I don't even bother seeing him. He was very upset with the name itself. But if you find him, you can just collect that $1 35 he owes me. Now, why was he upset? Because he owed him that $35. He says, in fact, if you see him, please take my money also from him. He was so upset. One of the customers thought he had seen Lutkins walking down Main Street, this side of the hotel. So one of them said, maybe, he's that side. He was walking down the Main Street, the other side of the hotel. As we climbed back into the hack, Bill concluded that since Lutkins had exhausted his credit at Gustav's, he had probably gone to Gray's for a shave. Now, Bill is telling the narrator that, now here he's got credit, he has to pay money. Okay, so because he has to pay money, so obviously he will not come back here because he is yet to repay it. He must have gone to the other barber, Gray. Maybe there he's gone for the shave to get himself shaved. At Gray's barber shop, we missed Lutkins by only 5 minutes. So yes, according to him, Lutkins had visited Gray's the barber shop, but just 5 minutes back he had left. Now, do you see the chase? So guys, keep the sequence on. First where, then where, then where. Please keep the sequence noted. Just like a timeline, just write it, mention it. So first he went there, then they went where? So first they went where? To Frid's, right? Then they went to Gustav's barber shop. Then they went to Gray's barber. So just remember the sequence. So he had just left probably for the pool room. Now from Gray's barber shop, he moves to the pool room. At the pool room, it appeared that he had just bought a pack of cigarettes and gone out. Now when they went to the pool room, as always, Bill went in, the narrator did not. And so he stayed there and he says, so he had just bought a pack of cigarettes and moved out from there. So we pursued him. Again, we followed just behind him, but never catching him. Obviously, how would they? That guy was walking with the narrator. So how on earth would they catch him? So we pursued him. We followed him just behind him, but never caught him. For an hour till it was past 1 o'clock. It was past 1 by now. I was hungry, but I had so enjoyed Bill's rough country opinions about his neighbors that I scarcely cared whether I found Lutkins or not. Now he says, more than finding that guy, now I got so attracted, I so enjoyed Bill's talks about him, the rough country opinions that he made and also about his neighbors, that I really did not even bother whether we actually found Lutkins or not. I was enjoying his company. How about something to eat, I suggested. Now he was hungry by now. It was lunchtime. So he said, let's eat something. Let's go to a restaurant and I'll buy you lunch. So the narrator tells him, okay, let's do one thing. Let's go to a restaurant and I'll buy you lunch. Let's have lunch. I'll pay for your lunch. Well, I ought to go home to the wife. He says, I'm sorry, but I need to go to my wife. I don't care much for these restaurants. Only 4 of them and they're all bad. He says, see, I'll tell you what, I have to go to my wife to get my lunch. I cannot eat any of these in this restaurant. There are 4 of them and none of them are good. All of them are bad. So really very boring to eat here. Tell you what we'll do. We'll get the wife to pack up a lunch for us. He says a better idea, Bill is telling him, let's do one thing. Let's go to my house and I'll tell my wife to pack some lunch for you. She won't charge you more than $50 and it would cost you more for a greasy meal in a restaurant. See, so you know what? He says she will not charge you more than $50. So you can pay that and that would cost you more for a greasy meal. A greasy meal and oily meal which you will get in that restaurant will cost you much, much more. In fact, here the food will be way tastier. And we'll go up to the Wade's Hill and enjoy the view while we eat. So we'll take our lunch, let's pack the lunch from there and from there we will go to the Wade's Hill. There is a hill over there and we will sit there and watch the view from there. It's beautiful. So while we take our lunch, we can go there and sit and enjoy. I know that Bill's helpfulness to the young fellow from the city was not entirely a matter of brotherly love. He says, now, you know what, I know that the entire thing, that whole episode where he was helping me, it was not, the motive was not actually brotherly love. That was not the intention. Of course, it meant business too. I was paying him for his time, $2 an hour, remember? In the end, I paid him for 6 hours, including the lunch hour. Now, lunch hour, they were not moving. They were sitting. But still, the narrator paid him for that as well. So, the money that he paid for 6 hours also included the lunch hour. Whereas they were not moving at that time, they were sitting, but yet he paid him at what was then a very high price. It was not cheap. At that point of time, $1 was really expensive. But he was no more dishonest than I. So he says he was no more dishonest than I. Even I would have taken this money from the firm. So it was okay for me as well. I charged the whole thing to the firm. But it would have been worth paying him myself to have his presence. His company was so good that I even wouldn't mind paying him myself. His cheerful country wisdom was very refreshing to a country boy like myself who was sick of the city. Now this country person, he had all the knowledge about the whole place. So this country boy, the narrator, so he was really tired of living in the city. So when he came to this countryside, he came that side. This guy, Bill, actually told him all about that place. So he was enjoying it because he hated the city. He no longer enjoyed the city, the narrator. So he was enjoying it here. As we sat on the hilltop, they were there by the hilltop, looking over the pastures and creek which slipped among the trees, he talked of New Mullion and painted a picture in words of all the people in it. So while they were sitting at Wade's Hill having their lunch, Bill explains, he shares with him everything about New Mullion, how beautiful it is, what had happened. So, just like a guide who guides you, this is how Bill was playing to the narrator. And he spoke of New Mullion and painted a picture. He put everything into words in such a manner that, the narrator could actually visualize the whole thing. And he also spoke of all the people in it, how the people over there are, how friendly, how good, how warming, or whatever. He explained everything about them as well. He noticed everything, but no matter how much he might laugh at people, he also understood and forgave their foolishness. Now he says he noticed everything. He would notice everyone, though he would also laugh at them for their foolishness, but yet he also forgave them for the same. He would also be, humanity. So he would also, on human grounds, even he would forgive them. He described the minister's wife who sang the loudest in church when she was most in depth. Now here he has started talking about all the people one by one. So he begins with the minister's wife, and he is telling the narrator that, she sings the loudest in the church when she was most in debt. When she had to pay somebody, she would sing the loudest. That was a sign that she is to pay somebody. He commented on the boys who came back from college in fancy clothes. He also shared with him that, some boys had gone, to city to study, and when they came back from college with those fancy clothes, how they were. He told about the lawyer whose wife could never succeed in getting him to put on both a collar and a tie on the same day. He is also talking to him about the lawyer whose wife never succeeded. Now, she always wanted the lawyer to put on the collar and the tie, but he never did both on the same day. Either once this or that, but he never managed to do both. So she never succeeded in doing that. So he even shared such things with him. He made them all live. The way he was describing, so the narrator could actually feel them live. On that day, I came to know New Mullion better than I did the city and to love it better. That day, I discovered New Mullion because he actually made me see all this, through his words, and he actually made me see them. And I felt I know New Mullion much better than I know the place where I live in currently. And of course, I started loving the place, New Mullion. Bill didn't know about colleges and cities. Now, he used to stay by there in the countryside. He didn't know what was there in the cities. He didn't know about colleges, but he had traveled around a lot of the country and had had a lot of jobs. He had definitely traveled around the country. He had done a lot of different jobs. So that much he had done. From his adventures, he had brought back a philosophy of simplicity and laughter. He strengthened me. Now, Bill had had a lot of experience working in different places, different jobs, and from all the experiences that he had taken, whatever he had experienced, from there he learned a philosophy, a lesson in life of simplicity and laughter. He was very simple and he kept laughing. So life was fun. Life was like a joke. It was, really nice and simple, nothing complicated. That strengthened me. That made me also very strong and away from all those complications of life. We left that peaceful scene of meadows and woods. Which were the meadows? We know the piece of grassland, especially the one which is used for hay. So we left those scenes and the woods and we continued our search of Oliver Lutkins. After that, again, we continued to look for him. We could not find him. Was it even possible for him? No, obviously. At last, Bill cornered a friend of Lutkins and made him admit what he guessed. Oliver's gone out to his mother's farm 3 miles north. We drove there laying plans. Now, finally, what Bill does was he cornered a friend, as in he forced into a place or a situation from which it was hard to escape. The way he made it, now you remember he had all manifested all this. He had just built up all this. So a friend of Lutkins tells him, oh, you know what? He's gone to his mother's farm and that is 3 miles north. And just imagine they went there also. So Bill and the narrator went 3 miles north to the mother's farm, laying plans. They were making plans. I know Oliver's mother. She's a terror, Bill sighed. So Bill is telling about his own mother to the narrator that, you know what, she is a terror. She's terrible. I took a trunk out there for her once and she almost took my skin off because I didn't treat it like a box of eggs. Now, a trunk was a big bag. So once I helped her out with it, I took it out for her and she literally got so angry. She literally took off my skin. I mean, maybe she must have bait him because I took it and I kept it with a big thud. I did not treat it like a box of eggs. So, how would you treat it like a box of eggs? You would take it carefully and you would keep it or else the eggs would break. So that is how she expected me to take that trunk. She's about 9 feet tall. Now, this is exaggeration. 9 feet tall and 4 feet thick and quick as a cat. And sure, she can talk. So, this is how he describes the mother. She's 9 feet, she's 4 feet thick, she is as quick as a cat and she can really talk loud. I'll bet Oliver heard that somebody's chasing him and he's gone on there to hide behind his mother's skirts. He says, I'm sure Oliver has got the news that, someone is trying to find him, someone is trying to chase him. So he's ran away, where his mom is and he's going to hide. He's going to take her protection. So, it's not literal behind his mother's skirts, but yeah, he would take her protection. He would go and hide there. Well, we'll try her. Let's see her. But you'd better let me do it, boy. He says, oh, remember, you stay away, let me handle it. You may be great at literature and law, but you haven't had real training in swearing. He says, see, you must be really good at literature, you may be really good at law, but handling this lady, leave it to me, I will take care of it. You've not really got training to deal with this lady. We drove into a poor farmyard. We were faced by an enormous and cheerful old woman. Enormous, she was big. So now, like he had described, 9 feet tall, but yeah, she was really very tall. So we were welcomed by her. We were faced, not welcomed, we were faced by an enormous and cheerful old woman. My guide bravely went up to her and said, remember me? I'm Bill Magnuson, the carter and hackman. I want to find your son Oliver. Now he's going to his mother and he's asking her, do you remember me? I'm Bill Magnuson, the carter and hackman. I want to find your son Oliver. I don't know anything about Oliver and I don't want to, she shouted. She was really up. She showed anger. She says, I don't even know him and I don't even want to know him. Now look here, we've had just about enough nonsense. This young man represents the court in the city and we have a legal right to search all the properties for this Oliver Lutkins. He says, look, we've had enough of nonsense. We've been searching him for hours. Now this Bill is telling the mother. So we've been searching for hours and this young man has come from the city. So he has a legal right to go to every place where Oliver must be. All the properties wherever he can be, we are there to search for him. Bill made me sound very important and the woman was impressed. He said, oh, he's from the law and from the city. So he made, that guy is really important. And of course, she was impressed. She retired into the kitchen and we followed. Withdraw to or from a particular place. So where she was standing from there, she went into the kitchen and we followed her. She seized an iron from the old-fashioned stove and marched on us shouting. She was not going in to call Oliver. You know what she went in for? She went in to take the iron, that rod, from that old stuff that they used to, cook food there. And she started chasing. She started walking towards us, shouting, you search all you want to, if you don't mind getting burnt first. Says, go search, but before that, I will burn you. She shouted and laughed at our frightened retreat. She burst out into laughter when we got so scared and we started moving back towards the hack. We just ran away from there. Obviously, they did not want to get hurt. They did not want to get burnt. So they just ran from there. Let's get out of here. She'll murder us, Bill whispered. Says, oh, let's just run from here. Otherwise, she'll really kill us. Outside, he said, did you see her smile? She was laughing at us. Said, did you see how she was laughing at us? I agreed that it was pretty disrespectful treatment. That was not the way to treat us. We did, however, search the house. Since it was only one story high, one story as in it had only one floor. Bill went round it, peering in at all the windows. He went around it to see all through the windows if they could find Oliver. We examined the barn and stable, where the animals were behind, that barren land behind, we went and searched there too. We were reasonably certain that Lutkins was not there. We somehow could make out looking at the condition there that he's not there. It was nearly time for me to catch the afternoon train and Bill drove me to the station. Now it was time up. I had to catch the train back. So there was no choice, so Bill took me back to the station so that I could board the train. On the way to the city, I worried very little over my failure to find Lutkins. I did not really bother. The journey that I was going back to the city, it was okay. I should have felt bad that I did not find the person. But then that did not bother me. I was too busy thinking about Bill Magnuson. Says I was just thinking about this fellow, that how good he was. Really, I considered returning to New Mullion to practice law. In fact, I considered returning to New Mullion. I wanted to go and settle in that place and practice law. If I had found Bill so deep and richly human, might I not grow to love Fritz and Gustav and 100 other slow-spoken, simple, wise neighbors? He says, had I known, had I found, now I found him so deep and richly human. He was so impressed with Bill. He really found him such a good human. See, that's what is important. You should be a good human more than anything. So even if you are a ranker, make sure that you're a good human. Now here, Bill had laid that impression. He was so good with him that, the narrator found him to be a very good human. He says, might I not grow to love Fritz and Gustav and 100, other slow-spoken or simple wise neighbors, it would have been easy to love them all. Had they all been like him, it would have been really, I would have loved all of them. I pictured an honest and happy life beyond the strict limits of universities and law firms. That's what he pictured. I pictured an honest and happy life. This is what he had visualized. He had imagined that what a very honest and a happy life beyond the strict limits of universities and law firms. Away from those strict rules and regulations of the law firms and universities, he expected this real happy life. So this is what he was expecting, a bed of roses. I was excited. I had found a treasure. He says, I had found someone really nice. He had really won, the narrator's heart. I had discovered a new way of life. He says, talking to Bill, staying in his company, I really discovered a new angle of life, a new way of life. But if I did not think much about Lutkins, the office did. Now, I did not find that person, so it did not matter to me, but it mattered to the office. I found them all upset. They were very angry with me. Next morning, the case was coming up in the court. Now, next morning, it was that case where Oliver Lutkins had to come and be a witness to it. And they had to have Lutkins. Lutkins was the witness for the case, so he had to be there. I was a shameful, useless fool. They got angry at me, and this is what I had to hear. That morning, my promising legal career almost came to an end before it had begun. Now, these guys were so upset with me that my journey, which was about to start, it had not even begun, it would have ended. They were so angry with me. The chief almost murdered me. He hinted that I might do well at digging ditches. He says, you were not even able to find that person. You'd rather be good at digging ditches, holes. I was ordered back to New Mullion, and with me went a man who had worked with Lutkins. So now what happened was, what these guys did was, they sent him back. They sent the narrator back, but with him, there was another person who knew Lutkins very well. So they both went together. I was rather sorry because it would prevent my loafing all over again with Bill. I did not like the idea that this man had to join me. Why? Because if this man was with me, obviously I could not enjoy roaming around that whole place with Bill. With him around, it was not possible. He would go and complain. When the train arrived at New Mullion, Bill was on the station platform, like before, near his cart. Strangely enough, that old tigress, who was the tigress? Remember? Yes, Lutkins' mom. Lutkins' mother was there talking and laughing with Bill. Check this line. Lutkins' mother was there talking and laughing with Bill. Names, same person. Two names, same person. But for the narrator, there were two. Not quarreling at all. He was shocked. He says, how come she had come running after us? She was chasing us. She was ready to hurt us. She was ready to burn us. Right now, she's talking to Bill and they're enjoying, they're laughing. She's not even quarreling with him. He was a little shocked. He said, how come? From the train steps, I pointed Bill out to my companion and said, there's a fine fellow, a real man. I spent the day with him. Now the narrator does not know what trouble he's putting himself into. So he's showing that guy from the train itself. He showed that guy who had come with him that, you know what, see that guy there? He's a super person. He's a very good human. He has a golden heart. I had spent the whole day with him. He helped you hunt for Oliver Lutkins? That man was shocked. He's saying, this man helped you to look for Oliver Lutkins? Yes, he helped me a lot. The narrator is saying, you know what, this guy really helped me a lot. He must have. He's Lutkins himself. What really hurt me was that when I served the summons, Lutkins and his mother laughed at me as though I were a bright boy of 7. Now, he was so shocked, the narrator, when that guy told him that he himself is Lutkins. And what hurt him deeply was when he served the summon to him, to Lutkins. Lutkins and his mother both laughed at him loudly. They laughed at what a big fool he was. And they just laughed in a manner that as though he was a very small boy, a bright boy of 7. He was just 7 years and he did not realize that he was being cheated. He was being fooled. With loving kindness, they begged me to go with them to a neighbor's house for a cup of coffee. So with loving kindness, they begged me to go with them. Then after they laughed it all out, then they actually pleaded him. They said, okay, let's go for a cup of coffee to the neighbor's house. I told them about you and they are anxious to look at you, said Lutkins joyfully. He says, Lutkins is telling, I shared it with my neighbors about you and they are literally waiting to see you. They want to meet how big was that fool who did not recognize him. They are about the only folks in the town that missed seeing you yesterday. He says those are the only people in the whole town. You remember he had gone everywhere looking for Lutkins. So all the people in the town had seen him, excepting for his neighbors. Says these are the only people in the town whom you did not meet yesterday. So you see, he put him into such big embarrassment. He was very badly hurt. How he had actually calculated that this guy is a good human and his qualities in fact strengthened the neighbor, but he did not know he was being taken for a ride. The cowl does not make the monk. Assassin's Creed 2 says it's the cowl. It does not mean that, if a person is dressed like a monk, he is a monk. It's not the case. So like they said, looks are deceptive. Looks are definitely, they can cheat you. So don't go on the looks. Get to know the humans. In fact, in today's world, it's in this world of social media, looks are deceptive. And I'm sure you all are aware of the same. Talking to strangers, becoming friendly with them. And then there are so many cases happening, so many things, so many issues coming up. There are people who are there just to fool the others and ruin their lives. So, dear friends, please take care of the same. This lesson is giving you an extremely important message. Take care of yourself, your lives, and those of your near and dear ones. Do take care. Keep watching and keep learning.